Hey everybody, this is Secular Sekai with Tridents Against Tyrants, and the stream today is not at the usual time. I'm sure many of you have noticed, uh, and some people might be asleep right now if it's particularly late or early in their time zone, wherever they are in the world. If you can hear me, give me a plus plus in chat because I am traveling and I don't have all of my usual equipment with me. So I just have two screens in front of me and my headset uh, instead of my whole audio setup. Okay, perfect. And hopefully the quality is pretty good. Hopefully it's good enough because yeah, I wasn't able to bring my whole studio with me. All right. If it's too loud at any point, just let me know. We're going to jump right into the news. Unfortunately, my schedule with all the traveling I'm doing for conferences and a few other things related to work, uh, I was not able to do the stream at the usual time. So we're gonna do it right now. Unfortunately, I also wasn't able to make it to the shill stream today, which I usually I greatly enjoy going to the shill stream. So Uh, yeah, that was really unfortunate. But I'm gonna try to make it next week. I should be able to make it next week because I'll probably be back at my studio again. Anyway, all right, let's jump right into it. So, first piece of news that we have that was, and a lot of the news today was provided by CF Beauty, who has helped out quite a bit. We're going to go through a bunch of the news since I wasn't available to go over any of it during the shill stream earlier today. All right, let's go. First news. Oh, which I should actually put onto the title. And as usual, I'll go ahead and put it into the description so anyone who wants to can see it. Leathercat. Yes, I do. Yeah. And actually, you can join me if you want right now, or we can. Oh wait, no. Right now it's not going to work because my schedule has been so crazy busy. I'm using OBS, but I didn't have time to set OBS up for having guests. I do still want to do it. I'm so sorry. Wasn't able to make that stream work earlier this week. Just I don't have an excuse. Just life got really busy. Um, but now after this stream, I have time, so I'm going to see if I can get that set up with the right software, so we could go ahead and do that sometime very soon. And if it doesn't want to work the way I'm hoping it will, then I'm just gonna we'll still do it, but we'll just do it with Restream because Restream always works. Um, yeah. So anyway, yes, we are still gonna do that. I will message you about it. All right, now then, uh, going back to the news. Let me put this link for the first article into chat. And I'm very sorry because I know that you had messaged me about it, so we will get all that figured out as soon as my life is not quite so hectic with physically moving around so much. All right, Battle of Chasiv Yar begins on the ground with Ukrainian forces defending city key to Russia's plans. This is from the Kiev Independent. All right, editor's note. In accordance with the security protocols of the Ukrainian military, soldiers featured in the story are identified by first names and call signs only. Chasiv Yar, Donetsk Oblast. As he creeps between rubble-strewn garages near the central central square of Chasiv Yar, the eyes and ears of the reconnaissance commander are glued squarely to the overcast midday sky. From the east, the unmistakable sounds of heavy fighting roll in without pause, not just artillery fire, but a full orchestra of machine gun and rifle bursts, anti-air cannons, and the occasional Russian airstrike. Most of that, though, is unfolding at a distance, around 2.5 kilometers away to be precise, where Russian forces pound the residential neighborhood on the edge of the city. What bothers the commander, 41-year-old Andriy Yanky, more are not the sounds of explosions, but of propellers, those belonging to the hundreds of drones, enemy and friendly, constantly surveying the battlefield. I can't take you any further, he says, pointing to a 5-story building just 30 meters away. Even 2 days ago, you could walk pretty freely between these buildings here. Now it's just a matter of time before they mark us on the map and start hitting us with whatever they want. They are really fucking generous when it comes to that. With just 5 kilometers of open ground separating Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut, which Russia took in May of last year after 10 months of heavy fighting, the city was always seen to be Moscow's next target in the sector. Here we have an image. A destroyed 5-story building in Chasiv Yar, Donetsk Oblast, on April 26th, 2024. You can see the visible smoke and charred damage of the brick structure itself. Yep. Yeah. All right. 2 years ago, it was here in Donetsk Oblast that Moscow, having failed to take Kiev by storm, embarked on its new strategy to grind the Ukrainian military down through a sheer advantage and soldiers and firepower. And this is something, actually, I think that I saw Professor Gertis mention in a video of his earlier, his most recent one, I believe. Russia has just switched back to their classic strategy that has always been used since the days of empire: attritional warfare. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to have the best strategy. You don't have to have the best quality equipment or even soldiers. Just throw enough bodies and equipment at a problem until you can forcefully get what you want through as much sacrifice as it takes. It's a horrible, inhumane strategy that is not efficient and does not belong in 21st century warfare. But that is their strategy. And that is why Ukraine needs to have the quality, the support, the resources to be able to make that attritional strategy of the enemy true attrition. Make it expensive, painful, and a major stress on their military and their economy. So we've already seen one large package finally get passed after, 9-10 months of pushing hard for it to get through US Congress. We see more going from the European Union and NATO member states to Ukraine now in hundreds of millions, sometimes a few billion, but it still needs to be more. Don't ever think that it's enough. Keep pushing. That's what we all got to do to try to get more support to Ukraine. 2 years ago, it was here in Donetsk Oblast that Moscow, having failed to take Kiev by storm, embarked on its... Oh yeah, sorry. Already read that. The strategy has stayed the same, and now it is beginning to pay off. Depleted in numbers by the endless positional fighting, overstretched Ukrainian units are beginning to lose ground. Over March and April, after being held just outside the ruins of Bakhmut for the better part of a year, Russian forces made a string of gains through fields and forests, bringing them up against the first streets of Chasiv Yar. Kiev has claimed that over 20,000 Russian troops have been gathered for the offensive on the city, while President Volodymyr Zelensky... Oh, sorry. I just saw an update that Rick's 5th NAFO truck campaign has been successfully completed. So that is fantastic. Thank you, Tridents. Thank you, Rollers. And thank you to everyone who helped to make that a reality. Those trucks do save lives. Vehicles are not cheap. And each one that can be delivered is extremely helpful. So thank you to everybody. All right. Have been gathered for the offensive on the city, while President Volodymyr Zelensky has suggested that Moscow's forces have been ordered to take it by Victory Day on May 9th. Technicalities aside, the Battle of Chasiv Yar has undoubtedly begun, and the stakes could hardly be higher. The city is rightly seen as the gateway to the agglomeration of 4 cities, from Kostiantynivka in the south through Drushkivka, Kramatorsk, and Slovyansk to the north, which form the backbone of Ukraine's defense of Donetsk Oblast. And remember, guys, As of now, Russia's goal is not to take Kiev. It's not to completely erase Ukraine from the map. It's to create a rump state, to force Ukraine into a position where all of its territories, based off of the maps that Ukraine has drawn up, Luhansk and Donetsk, are fully occupied and under Russian military control and administration. Uh, Now, Luhansk is pretty much 95% under Russian control with only a small Ukrainian foothold. Uh, Donetsk is not. Holding Donetsk and preventing the Russians from taking all of Donetsk is incredibly important. I would say equally, equally important. Um, Perhaps the only thing that would be more important than holding what Ukraine has in Donetsk, in my opinion, would be taking back the coastline in the south to be closer to Crimea and to, of course, have uh, more access to the Black Sea and really just uh, the sea in general. But yeah, um, this is something that needs to be figured out, and the West, all those who support Ukraine, really need to decide in the months to come uh, if enough is going to be provided to make sure that Ukraine can hold what it has in Donetsk. All right. On the map, making a defensive standing, Chasiv Yar, located on relative high ground and with a natural defensive barrier in the form of a canal, should be a good fight to take for Kiev. So, the Battle of Chasiv Yar, as of May 1st, 2024, from Deep State Map, provided by the Kiev Independent. Here we can see territory occupied by Russian forces before February 1st and 2024, and territory occupied by Russian forces since February 1st of 2024. They've gone from Bakhmut to and Gromove to Bodanivka, Ivanivske. They're getting ready to attempt to harass, it looks like, Kalinivka, and of course Chasiv Yar itself. And then Mykolaiivka, and then you can see the rest of the cities down here that were also mentioned past Chasiv Yar. Much needed artillery ammunition on its way to Ukraine as part of the long-awaited 61 billion dollar U.S. military aid funding package signed by President Joe Biden on April 24th is also poised to lift the defenders' battlefield fortunes after months of worsening shell hunger. But with many Ukrainian brigades badly attrited by long periods on the front line without rotation and the delayed preparation of fortified defensive lines in Donetsk Oblast, it remains unclear how capable Kiev's forces are of mounting a solid defense even in more favorable conditions. Russia is only up to the pace of its attacks, looking to exploit what could be a temporary period of enemy weakness to maximize territorial gains and finding success in a dramatic breach of Ukrainian lines further south near Avdiivka. To understand what could be a critical pressure test for the Ukrainian military and a sign of how the war will likely develop over the summer, the Kiev Independent gained rare access to units serving both on the flanks of Chasiv Yar and inside the city itself. Of course, we feel an escalation from the Russian side, but we are holding, said Yankee upon returning to proper cover. They are trying to break us, now we need to break them. Alright, under cover of spring, north of Chasiv Yar, open fields give way to undulating forest where at the traditional dawn hour, Ukrainian soldiers are changing shifts. Under a lush canopy of spring foliage, 6 figures in pixel camouflage walk in single file along a makeshift forest track. Each of them carries a crucial component of kit typical to Ukrainian frontline positions: petrol for the generator, a pair of quadcopter drones, a crate full of 3D printed bombs, and a slab of energy drinks. Equipment used by Ukrainian drone team at positions north of Chasiv Yar, Donetsk Oblast, as seen in the photo. As the men reach their positions and begin setting up their equipment, the sounds of the Battle of Chasiv Yar ring out from the right of the unit's sector. These positions are manned by a reconnaissance team of Ukraine's 56th Motorized Infantry Brigade, which has fought on the northern flank of the Bakhmut sector for over a year now. Once performing the tasks of a traditional on-the-ground reconnaissance squad, their work is all done with drones now. One team uses a Chinese commercial drone to maintain a constant vision of the zero line in the destroyed village of Bodanivka, while another carries out bombing missions on Russian forces with an FPV first-person view drone. Usually associated with one-way kamikaze missions against enemy equipment and personnel, FPV drones can also be used to drop grenades and other custom-made munitions, allowing one drone to be used many more times. As a brief reminder, as you can see, we have the bar up. We are at 8,357.35 hryvnia of our current goal of 1,785,000 for the next batch of drones. So if you'd like to help out with that, check out the links in the description. And as usual, PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and Monobank, if Monobank works in your country, are all available options if you would like to donate to that. And we currently we're at about 200 and something dollars, a little under 300 in the Buy Me a Coffee. Once we get that closer to an amount that'll actually finance a drone around $500 or $600, I would think, then we could probably go ahead and withdraw that and apply it to the Monobank. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Buy Me a Coffee donations do add up, and they do get moved over to the jar once they have built up enough. And the reason we do that is because there's a larger fee to withdraw from Buy Me a Coffee, so it makes more sense to do it once it's actually built up enough instead of multiple withdrawals that lose more of what you guys donate in the process. Throughout the day, 28-year-old bomber pilot Andriy Inspector flies out from the dugout to peer over at the village's debris-strewn streets in search of a target. For now, the Russian troops are sticking to their basements, so the pilot has been tasked with demolishing them, one grenade at a time. Periodically, the sound of other drones above their positions makes everyone crane their necks to the sky. Sometimes you have so many drones in the air, said Inspector, so many people wanting to work all at the same time that our guys end up interfering with each other's video feed. Oh, before I continue, I almost forgot. I'm going to open the Q&A in case anyone wants to pose a question there. All right, there we go. Oh yeah, yeah. It takes a while to get the to get it all funded. Remember though, when we started, it was at 2,200,000, and for anyone whose thinking is in dollars, it was a little more than 60,000 US dollars. And now it's, let's see here, 1,785,000. Now it's at $45,472, guys. So yeah, it's going to take a while. It's been known that it would take a while. Okay, I mean, if it takes a full year for the U.S. government to get 60 billion, this channel's not not yet at over 1,000 subscribers. It's going to take a while to get 60 plus thousand US dollars fundraised for a small channel. But you know, we reach out, we get support from other channels, we show support to other channels, and yeah, that's important. Speaking of which, don't forget that tomorrow Rick will be having his stream as usual. Please check it out, and yeah, go donate to his fundraisers, everybody, to assist the armed forces. You know, most of you here probably do watch Rick's channel, and I'm sure, are quite aware of the fact that, you know, it's good work, and he closes out a lot of different fundraisers of different sizes fairly quickly. So yeah, that's my shout out for today. Please go check out and support Rick's fundraisers tomorrow on his stream. All right, moving back to the news. Here we have a Ukrainian drone pilot, Andriy Inspector, at positions north of Chasiv Yar in Donetsk. The rest of it, and a lot of this, it does read as a story. And it very much is meant to, you know, just This article really seems to be highlighting the human aspect of what's going on in this war on the Ukrainian side. And yeah, they're fighting very hard. We've all been aware of this. Heroes of Ukraine. It's not an easy fight. Um, the enemy does not care how many of their own soldiers, it takes to get what they want. Their strategy is basically what the Chinese strategy was when they fought. Uh, Most people are familiar with the U.S. Vietnam War, but immediately after that, remember that the Sino-Vietnamese War between China, the People's Republic of China, and the newly formed Vietnamese government after the Viet Cong socialist communist forces took power and forced unification in Vietnam. Um, the Chinese basically did what the Russians are doing. It was just over a shorter period of time. They just threw wave after wave of men at Vietnam, even though the Vietnamese were much better trained and had just spent years fighting against against the United States, one of the largest, most well-armed forces in the world, doing guerrilla warfare against the U.S. And before that, they were fighting against the French, and uh, before they fought a lot of larger military forces. So again, back then it was attritional warfare, uh, and that was what they relied on to try to get what they wanted as a result in that war. And the Chinese performed very poorly, just as the Russians have performed very poorly as a whole, historically looking at how this war is playing out. But in the end, if you are large enough and you've got enough a heavy of enough swing, you don't need elegance or skill to get what you want, unfortunately. So we got to make the cost higher for the enemy, higher so that it's not worth it. And in the end, it is the orcs' undoing. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next article. For anyone who wants to read the rest of this, please be sure to check out the link that was put in the description. And we'll actually read out the ending. We'll read out the last part of this. When Ukraine has to fight off advances in a number of places at once but doesn't have sufficient manpower to do so, it makes it more difficult for them to deploy reserves to hold one given area, he said. When Russia is able to advance in one direction, it puts strain elsewhere because often Ukraine has to defend places with fewer units. With 3 different Russian reconnaissance drones flying overhead, the visit to Chasiv Yar is cut short as the area begins to be targeted by regular howitzer fire. We want peace, of course. People are tired. They want to go back to their families, to normal life, said Yankee, chuckling at the phrase normal life right as a whistling shell lands nearby. But it is simple logic. If we don't stop them here, they will keep going forward. And so, again, as always, major respect to the defenders of Ukraine. They are fighting the fight that really, in my opinion, there should be other European powers more directly assisting and getting involved. That's my personal sentiment. Which is why when there's rhetoric such as Emmanuel Macron's about France actually putting troops into Ukraine, I appreciate that. Will it actually happen? I don't think so. Again, actions speak louder than words. But the fact that the words being said at all is still potentially a step in the right direction. But yeah, something's got to change. The aid that Ukraine has received is going to be invaluable, but I don't want to see it be invaluable just to be enough for Ukraine to hold what territory it has. There has to be a bigger consequence, a bigger cost to Muscovites for what they are doing and putting Ukrainians through. That is my humble opinion. All right, on to the next article. First, let me check chat. All right, let's say hi to everybody. Leathercat, Salt of the Red Earth, Blonde Bombsheller, KK's GG. I know Anna is here. Michael. I'm sure there are more. Richie MC, UTV and Ham, KD9WNV. And there are probably more, but welcome everybody. Wizard of Ooze. Welcome. All right. Next article. All right. Also from the Kiev Independent. Putting it into chat now. General Staff. Russia has lost 473,400 troops in Ukraine since February 24th of 2022. So getting very, very close to 500,000 casualties. Now I want to remind everyone that casualties is not the same as fatalities. So this number is not, as much as many of us would like to think that it is, this is not 473,400 dead orc troops. This is those who are fatalities. This is injured to the point where they can no longer serve. So it's dead, maimed, and missing in action. All of the above. Deserters, those who decided to defect to the Ukrainian side, those who decided to find some way to just run and end up in some third-party country and probably won't ever be able to return to Russia. This is all of that. But still, regardless, 473,400 Russian troops who will not be returning to the battlefield. That is a large, very significant number. And I'm sure that by the end of this month or sometime next month, we will see it hit 500,000 or more. Here we see soldiers from Ukraine's 59th Brigade wait to fire a Grad multiple launch missile system in Donetsk Oblast. Russia has lost 473,400 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24, 2022, the General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces reported on May 4th. This number includes 1,260 casualties Russian forces suffered over the past day. According to the report, Russia has also lost 7,366 tanks, 14,156 armored fighting vehicles, 16,337 vehicles and fuel tanks, 12,148 artillery systems, 1,055 multiple launch rocket systems, 788 air defense systems, 348 airplanes, 325 helicopters, 9,611 drones, 26 ships and boats, and 1 submarine. Oh. Wait, is that it? Hold on. If so, then that's a very short article. Let me double check this. One sec. I was expecting more. Let me refresh this and check. Oh yeah, that is it, because the rest of it was audio. Okay, well, I guess that's a very short read then. Let's move on to the next article. Their Cubans and Serbians are whining a lot. Oh, among Russian forces. Yeah, I'm amazed that anyone who wasn't tricked into, as in they didn't want to join the Russian military, who willingly chose to sign a contract. Because I would not be surprised if there are both. I do think there are probably foreigners who were tricked and literally said, I don't want to fight in a war, but illegally have been basically abducted. And there are probably others who really just have no money and decided that they would sign up for this war because why not? What do they have to lose other than, their lives and their humanity? Um, yeah, but I can imagine there are probably plenty who don't want to be involved, who are now stuck in the middle of this. All right, next article. Hmm. Okay. Next piece of news that we have here is, yeah, another one from the Kiev Independent. And let me put it into chat. Russian students, excuse me, Russian students studying in Finland detained on suspicion of exporting dual-use goods. 3 Russian students studying in Finland were detained for allegedly exporting unspecified dual-use goods, items that are suitable for military capabilities. Finnish outlet YLE reported on May 3rd. Let's keep reading on, but okay, this is interesting because dual-use goods could really be just about anything. Um, I mean, really, it depends on how you define them. Either way, if these were Russian students who are supportive of the war and the Russian military, then yeah, detain them, is my opinion. And I don't, to the best of my knowledge, there's not any issue in Finland that I'm aware of attempting to harass or cause problems for Russian opposition. Students and people who have fled Russia who are against Putin. Um, so, but yeah, let's keep reading. I don't want to make any assumptions. Let's see what the rest of this article says. No details were released as to which dual-use goods the students are accused of exporting. Dual-use goods typically refer to a wide range of items, including technological and electrical components, chemicals, lithium batteries, motors, and servo motors for drones, and other various equipment that can be used for military purposes. The European Union has adopted various sanctions targeting dual-use goods, although it is currently unclear if the suspects are accused of violating international sanctions. Okay. It could also be that they really we'll keep reading, but it's also possible that they didn't have anything to do with the conflict. They were just trying to bring sanctioned items back to Russia, because you could probably make a lot of money selling those items because they're harder to get now because of say. Yeah, I'm sure people still get them, but they're harder to get. So think of it like it's like if you are someone who lives in Canada or the U.S. and well, maybe not Canada because I don't think there's a trade. Yeah, there's no trade issue for the most part. But in the U.S., Cuban cigars. Everyone legally buys Dominican cigars and Nicaraguan cigars and other South American cigars. But Cubans are this, for complicated reasons, still seen as a status symbol of, the best quality that people need to have, even though Cuba is sanctioned and it is very illegal to be purchasing Cuban cigars for all in most cases. So yeah, there's a market for it, I'm sure. Anyway, the European, according to Yile, the 3 accused, 2 men both aged 25 and an 18-year-old woman, were detained on April 30th in the town of Kajani. The 3 students were detained in the dormitory of Kainu Vocational College. According to investigators, all 3 suspects hold Russian citizenship. The Kajani City Court is slated to determine if formal charges will be filed in the coming days. The minimum prison term for illegally exporting goods ranges between 4 months and 4 years. Oh, is there not? I guess there's not more detail. Okay, so interesting. So, but if they were exporting, I'm assuming that they were exporting back to Russia. And again, uh, Russia is on a wartime economy. Uh, Even if they were just like, nah, we just want to send drone components because we've got buddies who like to do hobbyist, drone racing or something, which is almost certainly not the case. The bottom line is, you can't be doing that. And if you're not aware of that in the country you're in, just like how to a lot of people, purchasing Cuban cigars in the U.S., probably it's like it's just tobacco. Who cares? I mean, it's just a product. Why does it matter where it comes from? It does matter. It is a problem, and especially in this case because these are things that can be used to take the lives of innocent people in Ukraine. Uh, yeah, I'm glad that these individuals were detained. All right, now then, next article. And let's go on to a new news source. All right. From Reuters, Britain's Cameron in Kiev promises Ukraine aid for, quote, as long as it takes. And I really hope that that is true and he means it. I'm not usually a big fan of the Tory government in the UK for a number of different reasons. But I will say this, they've been extremely supportive of Ukraine. And that I very much appreciate. So, as much as I personally do have a few grievances with that particular party and their running of the United Kingdom, um, yeah, support to Ukraine has been extremely high from them. So I hope that does not change anytime soon, and I hope that their opposition, if they do gain more ground, share a similar sentiment for Ukraine. I actually have not looked into labor and what their stances are, but I should probably do that. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Let's continue. British Foreign Secretary from Kiev, May 3rd. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron promised £3 billion, 3.74 billion US dollars of annual military aid for Ukraine for as long as it takes on Thursday, adding that London had no objection to the weapons being used inside Russia. We will give £3 billion every year for as long as is necessary. We've just really emptied all we can in terms of giving equipment, he told Reuters in an interview on a visit to Kiev, adding that the aid package was the largest from the UK so far. Some of that equipment is actually arriving in Ukraine today while I'm here, he said. Cameron said Ukraine has a right to use the weapons provided by London to strike targets inside Russia, and that it was up to Kiev whether to do so. That I greatly appreciate. Honestly, props to the rhetoric and the strong stance that the UK and France have both been taking. Germany, Schultz, get your house in order, because we need to see unity. France and the UK are on board. Americans who support Ukraine are trying damn hard to keep their government on board, although it seems more like support to Israel kind of has been what support for Ukraine hinges upon, and Taiwan by extension, in recent months. Um, but yeah, we need to see more of this across the continent, across Western Europe, in support of Ukraine. All right. Ukraine has that right. Just as Russia is striking inside Ukraine, you can quite understand why Ukraine feels the need to make sure it's defending itself, Cameron told Reuters outside St. Michael's Cathedral. Item 1 of 5, Foreign Secretary David Cameron speaks to... Oh, that is for an image we cannot see. Cameron, who led the UK from 2010 and 2016 as Prime Minister and only returned to frontline politics several months ago, met Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, and President Volodymyr Zelensky on his second visit to Kiev as Foreign Secretary. Britain's top diplomat celebrated the release of a long-delayed $60 billion aid package by the U.S. Congress. It's absolutely crucial, not just in terms of the weapons it will bring, but also the boost of morale that it will bring to people here in Ukraine. However, Cameron did not answer directly when asked how he thought the possible re-election of Republican frontrunner Donald Trump to the White House could affect U.S. support for Ukraine. Donald Trump is not winning the election. Donald Trump will never be president of the United States. If something like that happens, I guarantee you that people will not be taking it lying down. Because there is no conceivable way that man could legitimately win the presidency once more. That is just my opinion. Of course, anything is possible. But I guarantee you that such a result would result in political instability and dysfunction in the United States that would make January 6th look like child's play. So, we shall see what happens, my friends. Off topic. Trump and hardline Republicans in Congress oppose further aid to Ukraine with the possible exception of a loan. It's not for us to decide who the Americans choose as their president. We will work with whoever that is, Cameron said. That is a very politically correct answer. Adding that the strategy for Ukraine's allies ought to be to ensure Ukraine is on the front foot by the time of the U.S. elections in November. That is the end of the article. All right, let's move on. Yeah. If that happens, the end of American democracy. Well, remember, American democracy has always been first past the post, semi. It's always been an imperfect democratic system with a lot of special interests and a lot of, I won't say oligarchical, but a lot of specific interest groups having effects on elections. So, yeah, the United States, in my opinion, has a lot that it needs to do to make its democratic institutions healthier. But that can't happen if a man who wants to be a dictator wins office. So if you're an American and you're listening, don't be complacent. Go register to vote now. And I will not tell you for whom you should vote, but if you have common sense, then keep in mind which man incited an insurrection against the United States government on January 6th. Just keep that fact in mind. All right, on to the next article. Oh, this one actually directly corresponds to this, and it's another one from Reuters, two different perspectives of the same topic, more or less. Kremlin calls Cameron's statement on UK arms for Ukraine a, quote, direct escalation. Okay, so also from Reuters, we're gonna see what Moscovia had to say, what the Kremlin had to say about about Cameron's statements on UK arms for Ukraine. Britain's Foreign Secretary David Cameron walks past a display of destroyed Russian military vehicles in St. Michael's Square amid Russia's attack on Ukraine in Kiev, Ukraine, May 2nd, 2024. That is a fantastic photo. Whoever took that, props to them. And I love the fact that there are so many that have been captured now. You can just have destroyed Russian vehicles in the middle of Kiev with Ukrainian flags all over them. That, yeah. Orcs can eat their hearts out. Their own hearts, I mean. Yeah. All right. Moscow, May 3rd, from Reuters. The Kremlin called British Foreign Secretary David Cameron's statement that Ukraine could use British weapons against targets inside Russia if it wanted to a direct and dangerous escalation of tensions around the conflict. Cameron promised £3 billion, $3.7 billion of annual military aid for Ukraine for, quote, as long as it takes on Thursday, adding that London had no objection to its weapons being used inside Russia. Ukraine has that right. Yeah, this is similar, the same quote from the other article. Russia has in recent weeks pummeled Ukrainian energy infrastructure with missile and drone strikes. Cameron's comments put Britain in a more hawkish position towards Russia, at least publicly, than the United States, which stipulates that any weapons it supplies to Ukraine should only be used within Ukraine's internationally recognized borders rather than against targets inside Russia itself. Ukraine says it uses its own drones and other weapons to launch attacks against targets inside Russia, such as oil refineries or railway infrastructure. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov described Cameron's comments as dangerous. This is a direct escalation of tension around the Ukrainian conflict, which could potentially pose a danger to European security, to the entire European security architecture, he said. Okay. So basically, we don't like this, and we're going to continue to make empty threats and say that if you keep doing this, that all of Europe's security is at risk. The only thing, everyone, that puts all of Europe's security at risk is the existence of this terrorist government in Moscovia. That is the real threat. And any time they try to strong arm or threaten or point a gun at anyone who wants to reveal that fact, who wants to point out the obvious, just keep that in mind. That de-escalation, it ain't an option with this government. The Russian, for lack of a better way to phrase it, the Russian government needs to be reminded every once in a while that no, they are not a top player, and they cannot do whatever they want, and they cannot murder and rape and steal from all of their neighbors with impunity. That goes for Ukraine. That goes for Tbilisi, Republic of Georgia. That goes for Yerevan, Armenia. That goes for all other ex-Soviet nation states, and they need to be reminded of that. And that's a big part of why they need to lose in Ukraine. This is where we see such a dangerous trend of escalating tension in official statements. This is a cause for concern, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova added. This is the first time that a Western politician has so frankly acknowledged what has long been a well-known secret for a majority of the world's countries, that the West is waging a covert war against Russia with the hands of Ukrainians. Russia would respond if Ukraine launched strikes against Russian territory with British weapons, she added. How irresponsible and callous do you have to be not to realize what your statements lead to, especially with regard to countries with nuclear weapons, Zakharova told a briefing. We always respond, but how can you not think about the feelings of British subjects and EU citizens? I seem to recall the Soviet Union saying very similar things long ago, and they did nothing. They lost the periphery of the Soviet Union. The Russian Federation does not have, as much as they would like to convince the world and themselves, it does not have the adoring love of all of its citizens. It is not a political entity that is without fraying at the seams. So statements like this, they don't come across as a statement of strength. They come across as a statement of weakness, paranoia, and fear. And I want to remind people of that. Shoot. Hold on. We lost sound for a bit. Hold on. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Okay. Well, that's very annoying. I can't control that. Usually I prevent that by having a good wired connection. But right now I have to use Wi-Fi. So, damn, that sucks. I wonder how much of that was not audible. Okay, now you guys can hear me. All right. Well, next week I'll be on a wired connection again, so hopefully that will not be an issue again. Now then, we are at the 50-minute mark. We're going to keep going for until we are a little over an hour. So let's keep going. In any case, the gist of what I was saying is Russian the Russian government has to be reminded from time to time that they can't do whatever they want to their neighbors. Uh, they have to learn that the hard way sometimes, but it is important. And yeah, um, the just like the Soviet Union lost its periphery, the Russian Federation is very aware that it can quickly have its own situation unravel. Not that it is at risk of that happening immediately anytime soon, but it can. And oh, no loss of info. Okay. And yeah, um, the uh, the Federation, just like the Soviet Union, when they make statements like this, it doesn't appear strong. It appears desperate and as though threats and coercion are the only way they can keep their government together. All right, let's continue. Oh, and also that was the end of the article. All right. Let's see. Let's see. This is the other piece of news that is in the title of this video. Let's go ahead and cover that right quick. From Jamestown.org. Moscow fearful of losing its military bases in Armenia and Tajikistan. Now, for anyone who's not familiar, Armenia is very much reliant on Russia, or it had been until recently, to defend itself from Azerbaijan and by extension Turkey, who supports Azerbaijan in war against Armenia to take land and also to, with the aim of either coercing the Armenian government to work with them or at some point likely forcibly taking parts of southern Armenia to create a land bridge, similar to what Russia had been wanting to do by creating a land bridge and cutting through southern Ukraine. But in this case, such a bridge would cut through Armenia, connecting Azerbaijan and Turkey to create a new proto Turkic imperial power, referred to by some, but not all, analysts as kind of a proto Turkestan, having to do with an idea of, I guess you could say Turkish mir, Turkish world, like how the orcs have their Ruski mir, Russian world concept. Let's read on. And Tajikistan is an ex-Soviet nation that is known for having a very authoritarian, militantly secular, uh, but government, but also a highly religious Muslim population, majority Muslim, like 95% Muslim. So kind of a powder keg situation located right next to Afghanistan, which, if any of you have paid attention to Afghanistan and Pakistan, yeah, that's why, yeah, that's part of the reason why the Tajikistan government is so heavily restrictive and authoritarian in the opposite direction. All right, let's continue on. Executive summary. Moscow hopes the protests in Armenia about the return of 4 villages to Azerbaijan will spread and force Yerevan to slow its efforts to integrate with the West. For anyone unfamiliar, that is because Armenia, geographically, it's not realistic for Western forces to be able to help Armenia. And also, Western governments don't really want to piss off Turkey because Turkey is important geopolitically, unfortunately, for things such as dealing with Russia and other countries that Western governments have problems with. So Armenia is kind of seen as a potential sacrificial lamb, which is very, yeah, it's sad. It is not something that I like. The belief that Moscow is backing these protests is having the opposite effect, prompting Yerevan to consider demanding the withdrawal of all Russian border guards and the closure of the Russian base at Gyumri. Russian outlets are reporting that Armenia's considerations are inspiring Tajikistan, and the Dushanbe is actively considering demanding Moscow close its base in the country. Since Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and his team, who come from a generation formed not in Soviet times and do not speak Russian as a native language, took power in Yerevan 6 years ago, Armenia has been turning away from Russia and toward the West. Just to add on to this, I want to remind everyone that, as I said before, there is an outlook from some that Armenia is kind of stuck in an impossible situation, a potential sacrificial lamb, so to speak, politically speaking. Armenia has nothing to lose. They know that it's a long shot for them no matter who they try to choose as allies, and the Russians have had that trust, and they lost it when they refused to help the Armenians in their previous war, which basically occurred at the same time as the war in Ukraine, or briefly right before the war in Ukraine. Actually, let me double check that. What was the exact year? Was it after February of 2022? Let me double check. Yeah, it was in 2023. So, because Armenia lost their war because Russia refused to honor their agreement to help the Armenians militarily because they were focused on the war in Ukraine. And they just didn't care to honor their commitment. So Armenia has nothing to lose. The way they look at it is, why would we stick with Russia? We know it's a long shot and the West might not actually help us, but we absolutely know that the Russians won't, so what is there to lose? Since Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and his team, who come from a generation formed not in Soviet times and do not speak Russian as a native language, took power in Yerevan 6 years ago, Armenia has been turning away from Russia and toward the West. Moscow has supported the domestic opposition to Pashinyan's team and has even tried to overthrow him in response to this turn, and because of its interest in maintaining influence in the Caucasus. Moscow has used the tactic of divide and rule politics, currying favor with Azerbaijan to develop its much ballyhooed North-South Trade Corridor, profile.ru, December 19th, 2023. Yeah, so they've even actively been working with the country that has been at war with Armenia. Despite treaty obligations to support Armenia in 2020 and again in 2022, when Azerbaijan restored control over Karabakh and adjoining territories, Moscow's failure to follow through infuriated most Armenians and gave Pashinyan additional reasons for turning away from Moscow and toward the West. Yerevan has been hopeful that Western countries could provide it with the assistance Russia has not. Remember, guys, Azerbaijan is sided with Turkey. Turkey is authoritarian. They are not a friend of the West at the end of the day. Even if there's kind of this let's play nice and pretend that we are all friends, we're in NATO, we're all in NATO, la la la. Just look at what countries have a more liberal leaning and which have a more authoritarian leaning. And that'll tell you, even if the authoritarian governments don't like each other, who's going to work together in the short run before they turn on one another. In this case, Azerbaijan and Turkey have their own ambitions. Russia has their own ambition. Probably they'll butt heads at some point in the future. But today, even if Russia doesn't work directly with Turkey on certain matters, they can do so through proxy with Azerbaijan. At the same time, though, Azerbaijan wants certain ties to the West, so it can become a confusing mess. Yerevan has been hopeful that Western countries could provide it with the assistance Russia has not. Yerevan's agreement 2 weeks ago to return 4 villages to Azerbaijan as part of the peace process sparked new protests not only in border regions but in the capital itself. Moscow saw a new chance following this decision to exploit Armenian discontent with Pashinyan, who has increased even more, which has increased even more since his government demanded that Russian border guards leave the region where the protests originated. This most recent round of protests continue and have similarly had echoes in Yerevan as well. Once again, Moscow's hopes that it can use unrest for its own ends have thus far gone unrealized. Still worse from the Kremlin's point of view, Yerevan is now reportedly mulling demands for the closure of the Russian military base at Gyumri. That consideration might raise the stakes for Moscow on its own, but more importantly, this move from Armenia may prompt other former Soviet states to reconsider the presence of Russian forces in their own countries. Some Russian security analysts suggest that the government of Tajikistan, already outraged by Moscow's treatment of Tajik migrant workers in the wake of the Crocus City Hall terrorist attack, that was a big thing. There was a lot of anger and outrage in Russia, for any of you who remember the attack, which was claimed by ISIS on the Crocus City Hall in Moscow. Uh, Remember, the Tajik government may crack down on extremism and be very old school, Soviet style, military enforced secularism through an authoritarian government, but it's a very religious society. There are a lot of Tajiks who are, devout Muslims. So there were quite a few incidents of xenophobia and, you know, hatred against anyone who was Muslim in the wake of the Crocus City Hall attack. Is being infected by such Armenian thinking and may demand that Moscow close its, quote, infected by such Armenian thinking and may demand that Moscow close its military base in Tajikistan. This move would, in the minds of some Russian writers, represent the wholesale collapse of Russian influence in the former Soviet space. These analysts suggest that this is the direct result of Moscow's obsessive focus on Ukraine to the neglect of developments elsewhere across the near abroad. That is probably the best way to put it, guys. Moscovia has been obsessively waging this war in Ukraine to the detriment of its other international treaties, obligations, and allies that they see as less important. Almost as though, almost as though success in Ukraine is the lifeblood, the only thing that gives them a chance at taking, retaking the Baltics, the only thing that gives them a chance at, one day somehow miraculously retaking Alaska, as though Ukraine is the symbol of, all or nothing. Gotta reform the empire, and this is the first step and the only way. It is that obsessive, the thinking on the orcs' part. And by that, of course, I do mean the Russian military and government officials, especially dinosaurs, aging men in their 60s or older who remember the Soviet Union. But it's not as though the younger generation isn't being brainwashed to be brought up very similarly. So it's not a problem that's going to go away just when one generation dies off. Don't ever think that. If that were the case, this would have been over decades ago with the former governments of what is today supposedly the Russian Federation. Lest the situation develops in that direction, Moscow has stepped up its pressure on the Armenian government to block such a demand. The closure of Moscow's military bases in Armenia and Tajikistan, however, is probably unlikely in the near term, given that both Yerevan and Dushanbe have long-term agreements concerning these bases, the first until 2044 and the second until 2042. Even if there is little likelihood Moscow would agree to withdraw, however, any open discussion of this possibility in Armenia and Tajikistan could create problems for the Kremlin. Russia has less leverage in Armenia today than history might suggest. Armenians have long been angry about the Gyumri base and the behavior of Russian officers there, as well as about how the bilateral accord regarding the base does not place any restrictions on the number of soldiers Moscow can place there. The influence of the Russian Orthodox Church in Armenia is minimal, thus reducing Moscow's ability to play on any Armenian interest in having the support of another nominally Orthodox Christian country. Additionally, the new ethnic Russian diaspora in Armenia, which arrived after 2022, is far more liberal and Europe-oriented than the one Moscow has exploited in neighboring Georgia, and is anything but supportive of Moscow's position. I want to mention about Georgia, what it says here. That is one thing that is quite concerning also. The things that happen in Armenia, it's not just a vacuum. So, events that happen in Armenia, just as important as events that happen in Georgia. Because if Moscow wants to send a message, a strong message to Armenia, to not, quote, get out of line, or, hey, we could come for you too if we want to, then an invasion of Georgia, an occupying and doing exactly what they're doing in Ukraine, in Georgia, that would send a message loud and clear to Armenia, hey, you're next, you're on our border. And I think the only thing that would deter Russia would be if for some reason Turkey was not happy with that and decided to say something along the lines of, hey, Russia, you're getting really close to our interest in our territories. The only way that could work would be if the authoritarian Erdogan of Turkey and the authoritarian Putler of Russia somehow decided they both wanted to carve up Armenia together, which I don't know if that would happen. It's one of many, many different possible scenarios, but it is one that concerns me as a possibility. All right. Let's see here. Lost my place for a sec. One moment. Georgia. Here we go. That leaves Russia with its three traditional options. First, ally itself with domestic opponents of Pashinyan, as it has been doing since 2018. Second, disseminate an active program of propaganda and disinformation. Third, declare that Armenia is about to be destroyed economically and politically by its leaders and claim that only Moscow can prevent that from happening. And I'm sure you can all guess how Moscow in that option would prevent it from happening. So far, as even some Moscow analysts admit, these threats have not worked. Pashinyan and his government have parried these challenges with remarkable success. They have used a combination of tough police action against demonstrators both in the border villages and in Yerevan, and numerous meetings with the protesters to prevent the demonstrations from spreading. They have challenged Russian propaganda about the border, highlighting that any concessions are intended to leave Armenia with internationally recognized and secured borders, and argued that Armenia's rapprochement with the West in no way threatens Russia. Rather, Yerevan has indicated and not waste time talking about that in the media. Given Moscow's attitude, tensions between Russia and Armenia are likely to grow. Moscow can be expected to use the resources it has, including ties with the Armenian opposition, to try to force Pashinyan to change course, lest he be ousted. Oh, for God. Sound cut again? Yeah. Yeah, this is one thing that sucks about traveling, especially when you have a busy schedule, because if I had it my way, I'd be in a different room in my current location with a cable connected directly to a router and privacy, but yeah, unfortunately I don't have that this week. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I know that's not usually the case. I usually have a decent connection. Um, but yeah. In any case, and this is why I show the articles on the screen. Because if I have an unexpected issue, at least you guys can read along, even if I've got a lot of lag. But anyway, it was a lot for 2 minutes. Oh God, there was no audio for 2 minutes. Okay, right this second, can you guys hear my voice? If so, let me know. Because now, 2 minutes is a long time. All right, I'm gonna do this. This. No, I'll do it from about. I'll do it from about here. Uh, since part of that was not audible. Vestnik Kavkaza, however, says that if Yerevan really wants to calm Moscow, it should give guarantees that there will be no spread of any military presence of the European Union, the United States, and NATO onto the territory of Armenia and not waste time talking about that in the media. Given Moscow's attitude, tensions between Russia and Armenia are likely to grow. Moscow can be expected to use the resources it has, including ties with the Armenian opposition, to try to force Pashinyan to change course, lest he be ousted. That conclusion is all the more likely because Moscow now has the additional concern that what Armenia is doing is serving as a bad example to Tajikistan. Some Russian outlets report that Dushanbe's consideration of closing of the Russian base on its territory utilizes exactly the same language Armenian officials are using about Gyumri. Such reports are likely to prompt Moscow to use what resources it has to step up the pressure not only on Armenia, but on Tajikistan as well, a move certain to trigger new and broader conflicts in the Caucasus and Central Asia. Uh, and so, also, don't forget, everyone, what's happening with Tajikistan and Armenia could be a legitimate move toward the West. It could be a legitimate move toward the West. But it also could just be these governments trying to get more concessions or more attention from Russia. Um, I don't think that's the case with Armenia. In the case of Tajikistan, it very realistically could be. So we shall see. In any case, I hope that this article is useful and provides a bit of information to all of you. Definitely go read it on your own time. It's a pretty interesting analysis. Well, not really an analysis, it's just reporting the news, but uh, regarding countries that not everyone is paying attention to, so it gives you a lot of information that you can analyze yourself. Oh, it was a few seconds? Okay, okay, good. So someone said 2 minutes. Okay, so someone said 2 minutes. Um, in the chat, and I was really concerned. I was like, "What? The sound cut for 2 whole minutes?" But okay, if it was just for a few seconds, 2 seconds, not 2 minutes, then okay, that's good. All right, now then, all right, we're a little over an hour now. Let's see here. We'll do one more article. Yes. Okay. Hold on. Actually, there's a lot of articles here. We're gonna pick 2 more articles and go through them real fast, and the rest I'm just gonna drop them on you guys in the chat, okay? In fact, we'll go ahead and just drop a bunch of these right now. Excuse me. Copy, paste, enter. Copy, paste, enter. Is Georgia still protesting? To the best of my knowledge, they are. I have friends over there in the protests actively sending me information about it. Um, which I will only not show because I don't have censored versions where the protesters' faces are blurred or anything. Uh, and yeah, it's been pretty wild. Um, to be honest, I'm a little concerned because I don't like the government there, the pro-Russian government or Russian appeasement government. But I also am kind of concerned that if that government is ousted, just like what happened in Ukraine, it will trigger a Russian invasion. Even if they're currently fighting you in Ukraine, the Russian government has nothing to lose. And I think they look at Georgia as, hey, we already have a foothold. We've already got 1/5 of the country. They're not going to get support from the West any more than Ukraine will. So maybe we can handle it. Even if we can't, we might as well go in there anyway and attack and try to, occupy this country that's way smaller and has a way weaker military than Ukraine does. Um, anyway, I really hope that my friend stays safe because they've been through a lot. They don't need to go through that shit. Anyway, yeah, Georgian Dream also reminds me of Yanukovych, absolutely, which is why, yeah, it concerns me a lot. It feels like deja vu. Blonde Bombsheller says, I don't know about you guys, but I think I like it better when Sekai reads them to me. Makes it more like story time, only the stories are kind of horrible mostly. uh, yeah, and it doesn't help that, as Mitch says, the State Department hasn't actually answered questions about Georgia in weeks in press briefings. But to be fair, part of that is, I think, is because they don't want to, make promises about responding to the situation or not if something happens, because it's not like they did anything in 2008 when it happened before. And second of all, I mean, I think it really is just because most Americans knew nothing about Ukraine or even that Ukraine existed before the full-scale invasion. Not even 2014 when the war started. Not until the full-scale invasion, most Americans didn't know anything about Ukraine. And now, still, only a certain percentage of Americans are even aware of Ukraine or that the war is still going on. Um, if you tell most Americans about Georgia, they're going to think that you're talking about Atlanta, everybody. They don't even know that there is a country called Georgia. Americans don't know geography. I can say that pretty confidently. Americans don't know geography or history or that there is a state of Georgia and a nation state of Georgia and that they are different things. And that is a sad fact. Anyway, let's keep going. Sorry, I got distracted. All right, okay. Gonna drop a few more and then we're gonna cover these last few articles and finish up the stream, everybody. Sorry, I'm reading your guys' comments, and yeah. I'm sorry, Blonde Bombsheller. To be fair, it's not just Americans. Canadians don't know shit either. I can tell you that. And I speak Spanish, and I talk to a lot of Mexicans and a lot of people from Central and South America. And outside of Central and South American politics, a lot of them don't know, among the general population, don't know what's going on the other side of the world either. So I don't want to pick just on Americans. It's just a very easy target because for a country with so much power and so much vested interest in global affairs, you would think that the general population edu- would be better educated on matters such as these, um, which is why support your public school systems, everyone. Make sure they're well funded and that the people running them know what they're doing. It is very important. All right, let's move on to the next article. which is not directly related to the war in Ukraine, but it is covered by Militarny, the Ukrainian military journalism project, journalistic outlet, which makes me extremely happy. For any of you who have forgotten that this war exists, which I hope you haven't because I mention it fairly often, the war in Myanmar is still waging, everybody. And even though it's far away and not directly related to Ukraine, it still has an effect. And I'll tell you why, because it affects China. And China is selling and openly allowing trade with Russia so they're able to continue the war in Ukraine. Everything is interconnected, even if it doesn't seem like it. So let's cover this a little bit. From Ukrainian author Roman Breshotko. Myanmar army and insurgents turn to FPV drones. Insurgents from the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, or MNDAA, and government forces have started using FPV drones. This information was reported by Clash Report. The released footage shows the use of FPV drones against military equipment and fortifications. FPV drones aren't the sole thing adopted by parties in the Myanmar civil war from the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Keep in mind also, guys, that the Myanmar civil war in its most recent iteration started only a few years ago, like back in 2020 or 2021, if I'm recalling correctly, right before the war in Ukraine. But technically, Myanmar has had an active civil war that goes up and down in escalation for decades. It's the longest running, multi-phase, complex civil war in modern history that no one pays attention to unless they get paid to for their job outside of Myanmar. Sadly. In early March, Militarny reported that insurgents in Myanmar destroyed a government troops' armored vehicle equipped with a grill. The video shows a destroyed Chinese WMA-301 export version PTL-02 wheeled tank destroyer vehicle based on the ZSL-92 APC. Myanmar's armed forces have about 100 of these combat vehicles in service. And a reminder that the armed forces of Myanmar are currently headed by an authoritarian military junta government that has been faring pretty badly against revolutionary forces from multiple, often very different and ideologically opposed rebel forces who are currently in a coalition to topple the military dictatorship. WMA-301, export version of PTL-02, based on the ZSL-92 armored personnel carrier, which is equipped with a grill. At that time, it remained uncertain whether anti-government forces had initiated the use of drones armed with ammunition or kamikaze drones, or whether government forces had begun proactive measures. Ukrainian armor in Myanmar. Oh, hold on. Before we continue, I'm getting a little bit of an error message. Let me make sure everything's okay and that you guys can hear me. Give me a plus plus if you guys can still hear me. I want to make sure before I keep going. While you're doing that, I'm going to check if there have been any questions, and there have not been. Oh wait, yes there is. There's one question. Side question, am I going to be on Rick's stream tomorrow? Yes, I should be. From Leathercat. I am planning to be on Rick's stream tomorrow. Yeah, actually, definitely, because there was another stream I was going to try to be on, but, yeah, that one is a closed stream, so it's not really for anyone to join. So, yeah, I will definitely be on Rick's stream. probably for a couple of hours. I don't know if I'll be on for the whole stream. Blonde bombsheller is not talking to me. Okay. Yeah, I see. I see. Okay. I'm sorry. All right, good. Let's continue then, because my error isn't popping up anymore. Now, again, to emphasize, Ukrainian armor in Myanmar. It was also reported that in Myanmar, the rebels seized Ukrainian-made BTR-3U and MT-LBMSH from government forces. It is known for certain that the country received 10 combat vehicles in 2007 and 16 in 2009. So again, this would have been back in the days of like pre-Yanukovych and Yanukovych governments, back when Ukrainian government was less pro-Western and more leaning in the direction of Russia, way back in those days. Oh, actually, well, hold on. There's 2014, and then there's hold on a sec. 2007 and 2009. Revolution of Dignity was in 2014. But the Orange Revolution was in 2004 to 2005. So I guess that would have been after the first of two of the most significant political revolutions in modern Ukrainian history. Hmm. Yeah. So this would have been just brief, a few years after the first series of protests and revolution in Ukraine that didn't bring Ukraine directly closer to the EU and the West, to my knowledge, but it kind of planted the seeds and was the first event that really scared the Kremlin into realizing, oh, we might be losing Ukraine. We need to keep an eye on that. Um, but still, regardless. So let's see. This would have been before 2014 and before Ukraine really had a major shift in government. Just governments that were made more aware that the people were not happy uh, with a style of government that was more similar to Russia's. Um, Captured by MNDAA rebels, BTR-3U with KBA-105 Shkval RWS. There is unconfirmed information that Ukraine sold a slightly larger number of MT-LBM-SH to Myanmar, but there's no official information about this. It is known that Myanmar acquired about 10 BTR-3U in 2003. These armored personnel carriers were seen in 2021 during the beginning of the coup in the country. So, yeah, these are all old. It's not any recent sale to Ukraine, but yeah, the war in Myanmar does occasionally, from some people I know, get a comparison to the war in Ukraine, even though they're very different conflicts. So it's interesting to know that there are analysts and journalists in Ukraine who are paying attention to what's happening there as well. All right, let's see here. Oh. That is recent. Hey, if we're talking from a political point of view, I'm not talking about total years of a human lifespan. I'm talking about, you know, 2021 was an eternity ago. Uh, when you look at everything that has happened since 2022, you know, big changes bring a stretch of time where 1 year becomes 10. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess really I just want to highlight the fact that the early 2000s, since the early 2000s, a lot of change has happened in Ukraine, guys. Um, and a lot of myself included, it's not like I was an expert on this stuff in the early 2000s by any means. I'm still not an expert. There's a lot of shit that I don't know. But a lot of us who are on the side of Ukraine and pay attention to this might not have been as aware of just how much has been happening in Ukraine, the major shifts over the past 20 years, because it's been pretty astounding. Man, I'm being ganged up on in chat. Nice. Love you guys. Thanks for being here and sticking with the stream. All right, we're gonna do one more and close out the stream now, guys. From Militarny. Excuse me. The United States doubles funding for the purchase of 155 millimeter ammunition. From May 3rd, 2024. The U.S. Congress doubled its request for funding to purchase 155 millimeter shells to replace the ammunition supplied to Ukraine and Israel. Reuters reported on this. The total value of the allocated funding is reported to be up to $6 billion. By my math, the supplemental we asked for, about $3.1 billion, related to the increase of 155 millimeter ammunition units production. We appear to have gotten $6 billion. So that, I think, is a vote of confidence as we make our way to 100,000 shells a month, Doug Bush, the chief weapons buyer for the Army, said. Illustrated photo of 155 millimeter ammunition. Bush said the United States plans to increase monthly production of 155 millimeter artillery shells to 100,000 by the summer of 2025. That's very important. If there's one thing that the war in Ukraine has definitely made the U.S. and other countries realize, it's that they are woefully unprepared to arm the arsenal of democracy for an extended military campaign, ground warfare between two industrial powers. Because keep in mind, maybe they're not industrial superpowers, maybe they aren't the richest countries in the world, but Russia and Ukraine are industrialized nations. You know, this isn't a war between third world countries that don't have the infrastructure to maintain this rhythm and this resource consumption needed to have this kind of prolonged conflict. You know, Russia and Ukraine are both making it work. It's difficult on both sides, but they're both managing to either produce or acquire from allies what they need to continue the war. And the U.S. is starting to wake up to the fact that it needs to increase its production. Militarny previously reported on the U.S. plans to increase ammunition production back in the fall of 2023. Also, just a quick side note, hot button topic, I know, but seriously, guys, Americans not having healthcare is the only reason, and it's not the only reason, but it's one reason why this is possible. And I know not everyone wants to hear that, but yeah, the U.S. spends a lot on military production, and even doing so, it's still not enough. All right, let's continue. Militarny previously reported on the U.S. plans to increase ammunition production back in the fall of 2023, but at the time it was about 80,000 shells per month by the summer of 2025. Increase in ammunition production in Europe. Militarny previously reported that the French gunpowder and explosives manufacturer Yorenko would increase production of modular propellant charges for artillery to 500,000 units per year. According to the CEO, the company has received orders totaling 1 billion euros in the last 6 months alone. The Lithuanian government and Rheinmetall, from Germany, signed an agreement to build a factory to produce 155mm artillery ammunition. The signed document sets out mutual obligations and intentions to start construction of the joint enterprise as soon as possible. Pictured here, production of DM-121 155 millimeter artillery shells. Officials have not yet disclosed details about the Enterprise's future and its design capacity. The new facility is part of Rheinmetall's long-term strategy, which plans to reach a production capacity of more than 1 million artillery rounds by 2027. On April 10th, it was reported that Urenco is investing 500 million euros in the production of gunpowder at its plants in Europe. All right. And with that, we're going to end with the articles. We're going to take a quick look. Oh, don't need an ad. At the deep state map. Hold on. Don't need that visible. Hold on. One sec. We're going to take a quick look at the deep state map. Just to take a look at what we've got so far. Going on the battlefield in Ukraine. Hold on. Detailed review of the front for April 29th. Read. It's from Telegram. Hold on. Ooh, but that's from April 29th. It's already May 4th. We might as well take a look at it. Hold on a second. Oh, maybe if it... Nope, never mind. I thought that I could just have this open and it would allow me to translate this to English to show you guys, but I guess for some reason Telegram doesn't allow the auto-translate that's built into Chrome. We'll just take a look at the map. Ooh, you live close to one of the new artillery shell plants in Texas? Okay, well, don't give away your exact location. But if it's not the exact same place, which town or close to which town is the artillery shell plant? Because that's very interesting. Or what's the name of the plant if you happen to know it? Assuming it's not need to know information, as it's not revealed to the. If it's publicly available information, then definitely just let me know the name of the plant or approximately where I could find information about it. If not, then don't share anything. Somehow I doubt that it's private information, the location of this plant, but I am very curious. Anyway, yeah. Well, I mean, OPSEC, yeah, but I have no idea. It's not like the location of the plants that have been producing in Pennsylvania is secret. It's not. You can find it pretty easily. They write articles about the exact name and location. So I'm curious if this is publicly available information or not. If it's not, then don't answer. But let's move on. Okay. Cool. I will look into that. Thank you. All right. Okay, everybody, so let's take a look at the map. What have we got here? Right there is CADR and CALR. Oh, interesting. I don't recall seeing that before. Has that been there? Hold on. What is this in reference to? Is this part of the like the Sudovikin line? Hold on. CADR and CALR. So CADR, I believe, is Donetsk Republic, and LR is Luhansk Republic. But I don't know what this line is referring to right here. If anybody knows in chat, let me know. Interesting. Anyway, let's go back to this. That line, yeah, that's what I was thinking. That line is new, and it's somehow related to the two unrecognized republics. I don't know what the CA is supposed to be, but the Donetsk Republic and the Luhansk Republic, I'm assuming. Um, but let's see. But that section is only inside of the. Oh no, that is Luhansk region. Wait a second. That's southern region. Donbass, Donetsk, Luhansk. Oh, there's the line. There's this line separating the two. Interesting. But it's down in the Donetsk region. Okay, anyway, I'll look into that more later. There was an east-west Surovikin line long ago. Yeah, there was. So I guess this is part of it that was drawn in this area? I don't know. Let's take a look at the front lines. We'll start with the Bakhmut area. Yep. Come on. Give me the right info. Huh. It's probably because I have this too small, but I want to keep it to where you guys can see it without me having to go to the browser version. Damn it. Hold on. Alright, this is going to get stretched for a sec. Sorry. There it is. Oh, it disappears? Oh, I hate that. Okay, well then we'll do it this way. Yeah, we'll just do it this way. So you guys can see it without me having to change stuff in the software. Oh, no, that's hard to control. That's very annoying. Okay, Lysychansk, Bakhmut, Bakhmut. Let's get back to Bakhmut. There we go. Going back to, let's see. All right, we're going to look at what's been happening in this area from April 22nd until today. 23rd, they took back a bit of territory. 24th, small gain by the enemy forces. 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, and today. So while it's still not good, and they are waiting to get more supplies from the US, it's not all doom and gloom, guys. Because look, the enemy has unfortunately taken a bit more territory, but it is still quite slow, and they're trying their best to take advantage of what they can in the meantime. Right now, before extra munitions arrive for the Ukrainian armed forces. Chasiv Yar, as you can see, it is coming under fire. But Chasiv Yar, it took a long time for Bakhmut to fall. And Chasiv Yar is going to be getting more reinforcements and more weapons The real question, though, is this. How long will the U.S. aid package and other aid from European countries last? For how many months are we expecting these tens of billions that have flowed in now to last Ukraine for 6 months? Will that be long enough? And more importantly, or equally importantly, manpower. Uh, how many men can Ukraine muster to get well trained on this equipment and expect to receive more in the months to come, in 6 months' time? In 6 months' time, where will we be politically in terms of who wins the US presidency and several other important elections around the world? Where will we be economically and militarily in terms of support for Ukraine? There's a lot of factors. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. Let's move away from Bakhmut and go take a look at. Let's see. I think things are still pretty steady over here, but let's take a look up here in the northeast. Nope, nope. We are seeing some cracks here, some minor gains from the 29th through to today. A few gains heading in the Kupiansk direction. Still very slow. They're still very far away. They're not going to get anywhere near it anytime soon. Dvorichna. Hold on. Let's see. This is where I would be more concerned. Because as you can see, the enemy has this road almost under fire control. Actually, they do. I'm pretty sure have this under fire control, but they haven't chosen to. Oh, but this road doesn't go anywhere. It just ends. It doesn't connect. So I guess that doesn't really matter all that much. It's kind of a vestigial structure, transport-wise. Yeah, I guess so far it's mostly the area down here near Bakhmut that's most concerning. So let's hope that Ukrainians can hold the line and get the resources that they need to push back a bit. I don't think I've heard of anything major happening in the south just yet, although I am seeing more pockets of green slowly start to get attacked again. Haven't been any chances for breaking through down here at all. It's been pretty much a stalemate on both sides. No more aquatic missions that I'm aware of from the Ukrainian side. In fact, we have a few of these that are in the gray or under, yeah, this whole gray region under Russian fire control. This one right here, liberated territory right next to unknown status. Wow. Yeah. A lot of stuff going on. Well, hopefully we see some positive changes in the map in the weeks to come, everybody. All right, I'm going to take a look and see if we have any questions right quick. Oh, the link on the About page for Tridents Against Tyrants is working for the Discord? Good, good. Oh, the Discord invite link didn't work for you, Noodle? Oh, no, the one here being shared in chat? Yeah, maybe it does need to be updated. Anna, if you know how to make a Discord invite link, you should be able to make a brand new one. Feel free to do so if you want to, when posting. If not, then I can make one for you. Reporting from Ukraine said Russia was using Ukraine used glide bombs on Russian positions in Kherson. Okay. Okay, perfect. Good to know. Good to know. I'll keep that in mind for. Yeah, I try not to. Okay, so I try to. And this is actually important. I guess it doesn't make a big difference, but it's a permalink, the one uh, on the main YouTube channel. Um, but I try not to have too many permalinks, different versions of permalinks just floating around because I think it can become a problem. That's why Discord has the automatic, expires after a few days or after a week or so. But we haven't had any major problems with trolls or anything, so I'm not really that worried about it. But maybe I'll try to update it. I'll just grab the link from the YouTube channel and put that into Discord. I'll make a note to update that. Anyway, I think that's about it for right now, everybody. Big thank you to Anton, Rick. Rick made a donation that uh, jumped us up from 4,000 to 8,300 hryvnia here recently. So that's very appreciated. Thank you, brother. We are still continuing our fundraiser. Some supplies, some FPV drones were delivered recently, as shown in the last update and I believe in the last stream as well. And yeah, this war is far from over. And we all got to do what we can to continue our support. Thank you for being here, everyone. Please share the stream. Please share the fundraiser links. Please let people know that this is important and that our grassroots efforts do still save lives in addition to the billions of dollars of support that are now flowing in. And yeah, love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow on Rick's stream. Have a good evening. Let me check that I'm not forgetting any questions. Nope, we are good. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Slava Ukraini and Herrem Slava.